G'day, Andy. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. Thank you for agreeing to be on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Grant.
It's an absolute pleasure. I want to talk to you a lot about your motivations and why you're a photographer, but I also really want to touch on what makes some of your photography a little bit unique and unusual, which is the way that you actually take photos.
Mhm.
So why don't we talk about that first, and then we can move on to what sort of led to why you do what you do the way that you do.
It's a bit of a journey, the whole thing. I mean, I've been a photographer since the early '80s. A commercial photographer. Started off at the newspaper, at the Herald. Then I got into sports and all sorts of bits and pieces, fashion, advertising. So I was a commercial photographer for kind of 40 years. And then the whole time as well, I had this kind of real passion for flying. So I've kind of flown something since my 20s. I started off with a paragliding and so on.
Okay.
I'm 61 now, so that's an awful long time. So paragliding, got into the sailplanes, microlights, all of that sort of stuff, and then eventually got into flying a powered aircraft, a little plane, and got a commercial license during COVID because I just needed to keep my head in flying.
Yep.
So that's kind of that. With the photography, I put the photography together with the flying thing because I thought this would be a great way to, see Australia, take some photos. And I didn't really know what I was doing. So it was pretty much just, I tried hanging out the window with the camera. That didn't work because I really wanted to shoot a bird's eye.
And you're also trying to fly a plane.
Trying to fly a plane at the same time. But I was flying with my knees and out the window, so it was kind of a little bit of a mess.
All right. We won't tell Casa that.
So I kind of figured that wasn't the way forward. So I got this engineer to create a little mount that allowed the camera to poke through like a inspection hole in the underbelly of the aircraft.
Right.
And a wire shutter release was on the control yoke. So basically I could just fly and shoot at the same time. So I'd put the plane in autopilot and go shooting. But what happened was I didn't know what I was doing because you couldn't really see what's under the plane as it was under the planes. I had a little iPad it gave me a preview of the shot just moments after I'd shot it. And then I decided to take this whole setup and go up to Darwin from Melbourne and basically went straight up the guts, via Uluru and Alice Springs and Tennant Creek and so on. When I got there, the idea was to go to the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Art Awards because I love Indigenous art. And then I met a whole lot of artists, particularly one by the name of Simon Hogan from the Spinifex Art Project. He really inspired me with his work because he shoots. I mean, he paints basically. Indigenous paintings are often maps, overhead maps. So his paintings, depicted sort of patterns and things that I'd seen in flight. And so I was really inspired by all of that stuff. And then speaking to him, he really, like Aboriginal people have such a connection to the land. Their soul is that whole thing. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When I experienced all of that, it all clicked in my head. It was kind of like, okay, so I became a lot more deliberate with what I was kind of shooting. I'd fly along riverbeds and set up like a frame in my kind of mind's eye. And as I said, I couldn't see what was under the plane while I was shooting it. So I had a flying map that I had on, satellite mode.
Yep.
And it was pretty accurate. So I could fly down a river and compose the shot more or less so that the river would be going through my frame or a mountain range or whatever it may be. And that's how I started doing it. And that looking at the work before I went there and experienced all of that to after was chalk and cheese, was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It all kind of came together. And since then, I've met Simon a number of times and other Aboriginal painters. And so it's been a real journey to sort of see all of that. Then, I often find things while I'm out there shooting and I go, because they're very strange landscapes. They're, abstract sort of things. And I wonder how they become. And so I do a big deep dive into a particular area or a particular lake or whatever, and I learn about the Aboriginal significance of the area, things about how it was formed, scientific things, and all of that sort of stuff. And it gives me a better understanding of all of that sort of stuff, because I've got a very, I don't know, it's a lust to try and quench my curiosity, if you like.
Yeah, sure.
And since then, it's become like a drug. It's just unbelievable. As you would know yourself, when you make a discovery like this, it offers you so much creative freedom.
Definitely, yeah.
It's just, to have that freedom is like, it's beautiful and it's rare and it's fragile, but it's really the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning, you know?
Yeah, totally.
The only person you have to please is yourself, but you're the toughest critic on your own work, as you know.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. It really excites me, you know, when I go out there shooting now, sometimes I'm out of reach of air traffic control and everything. So I'm completely by myself. And that's when it all comes together. It's just lovely.
Fantastic.
So that's kind of it. That's about the inspiration. There's a number of other artists that have inspired me. There's another one called Joseph Williams from Tennant Creek. He's actually, I haven't met him yet, but funnily enough, I've got, you know, Croatian heritage, and I did a show in Croatia last year with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade they've actually supported me right around through Europe, you know, for the last couple of years.
Sure.
I'll get to that a little bit later. But so I did an exhibition in Croatia, organized through the High Commission in Zagreb. And they showed me a little film about a First Nations artist that had a Croatian father.
Okay.
Really amazing. And he lives in Tennant Creek. Anyway, so after I saw this beautiful film, I reached out to him and I said, look, next time I'm in Tennant Creek, I'd really love to meet you and, you know, do some portraiture, talk to you, and all sorts of stuff. I mean, his work is actually really different for First Nations artists. He does a lot of portraits and things like that are really, really sort of, they have this kind of, this haunting kind of spookiness about them. Check them out if you get a chance.
Yeah, definitely will.
Yeah. And then obviously some other inspirations and mentors that I've had, you know, in my life, people I've worked for and so on. And it's kind of been, as you know yourself as a photographer, it's an evolution, isn't it? You know, it's kind of
Definitely,
like what you find interesting, you'll go out and do these things, you know, like my next little thing that I'm working on now, because I've been flying around for a long time, and when it's cloudy, I can't shoot the ground. So I've actually created this pod now that lets the camera see forward. So I go and play in the clouds and take stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
It's a new thing. And when you're actually within the clouds and you have these, it's like playing as a child, running through, you know, along grass and stuff like that, through dandelions and things. It's like, it's just unbelievable. It makes me really giggle.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
these tunnels of clouds and it's all coming at you and it's just beautiful. So that's a series I'm working on right now as well.
Yeah, flying through cloud is definitely one of my favorite parts of. It's not always a comfortable ride, but it's
no, but it's
amazing to look at.
The camera angle is it's like the Superman POV, if you like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're right in it. It's pretty cool.
Nice. So I want to roll way back to when you first picked up a camera. What was it was it a gift from family? Was it something at school? What was it that sort of got you into photography, and what made photography bite for you and say, okay, this is something that I really want to do with my life?
You know, I'm glad you asked. I've always kind of been, you know, my folks bought me a box brownie back when I was, you know, 5 or something. And, you know, I was hassling them to process it and whatever. And so I did have this kind of, it was a little seed of a love for photography. And then when I went to school, I had a teacher that saw this kind of passion in me. And it wasn't offered in the year level that I was at school. I was in year 10 or something like that. And it wasn't offered until year 11, year 12. So the teacher in the art department said, and I was boarding not far from the school, teacher from the art department, and we're still really good mates today.
Nice.
She said, "Why don't you have dinner and come and meet me in the darkroom? We'll see what develops." You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
I mean, that couldn't possibly happen today.
No.
But got to tell you, I thank my lucky stars that it did, because she shaped my whole life, my whole career,
Mm.
and that's where she nurtured this passion in me. And so, just being in the darkroom, you look like you're of the age that you saw film, right?
Yeah, I started at about age 10,
Yeah.
and I'm 61 like you are. And I think it was in high school. I forget whether it was year 9 or 10. I was lucky enough to have an art class where we had a dark room and we actually did. I hesitate to call it photography at the very beginning, because it was sort of like making outlines of pairs of scissors and things
Yeah.
on photo paper, that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
But that processing of prints was really what drew me into photography too.
Oh, it's magical. It's like
You have
alchemy.
this blank sheet of paper and you dip it in this chemical and you dip it in that chemical, and then you hang it up to dry, and
I
then
was
you
just about to go there.
sit there and watch it appear.
It's actually magic, as a kid,
Yeah,
looking at that stuff and actually having so much from an egg, so much fidelity as well. It
exactly.
wasn't
Yeah.
just sort of looking like a drawing. It was actually a black and white photograph with lots of tones and everything else. And it was like looking at it in black and white. I just couldn't believe it. It blew my mind,
Yeah.
and then I got into color, and then I got into this and that, and finished up doing work experience at the Herald, in my sort of final year at school. And then when I left school, I actually went back there because I knew quite a few of the guys, and kind of got a job there, finished up shooting the footy records with them. So I was at the MCG every Saturday, or Princess Park or VFL Park or something.
Yep.
And that was a lot of fun, shooting all the footy records, and then kind of slowly got into, I started working for a company called MediaWorks that did slide tape shows, which was really interesting. Started working for this fashion photographer who used to pay me with women.
Okay.
A little bit different. But I was a teenager at the time. I didn't need anything. And it was a different time back then, like today, you
Definitely.
possibly survive without money,
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah, I'll just get some pasta, put some lemon juice on it, boil it up, and I'm done, right? I'd survive. But, and after that, I left this guy after 5 years, and I went to assist another guy that I was working with at the MediaWorks. And he said, "Look, Andy, it's time you started your own business." So he said, "You can use my studio until you sort of get on your feet, and then you can start paying me a little bit of rent." And I was like, "Well, thank you very much." So
Okay.
that was fantastic. And his name is Joe Vittorio, which is another guy that I'm going to put you onto, because he's fantastic.
Definitely. Yeah.
He still shoots lots of amazing stuff, and he does some kooky sort of stuff. He's
Yeah.
very creative and been shooting for a very long time. And wonderful, wonderful person. So he gave me a little leg up, which was great, and then slowly I started getting more and more clients, got an agent, turned into a, fashion shooter when fashion was kind of had some money in it, worked all over the world doing that. And it was fabulous. And then COVID came along, and it was kind of like a perfect storm. If you could imagine, all the art directors I was working with all the agencies and stuff that, I was doing lots of advertising work, and the art directors were about my ilk as well. And so COVID, they said, "To hell with this, we're going to retire."
Yep.
New teams came in with all of their new photographers and everything else. And so I got left on the scrap heap. That's pretty much how it went. Then luckily I had this thing that I was kind of, the time I went up to Darwin, and met Simon, that was 2016. So I didn't even, it was just a little kind of like a little toy project back then. And
Okay.
I better do something to keep food on the table. So that became my new thing. So I grabbed that body of work, because I shoot an awful lot of stuff when I'm flying,
Yeah.
becomes a fairly large body of work pretty quickly, and grabbed that, did a collection, had some exhibitions here in Melbourne. Then there was somebody that said you should exhibit through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, so all the embassies. So it started off in Paris. I sent them a little pitch. I said, "Here's my work. Would you show it?" And the the embassy in Paris, I don't know if you know it, it's got one of the most beautiful art spaces. It was a building designed by Harry Seidler. So it's
Never been in our embassy in Paris, unfortunately. Well, fortunately as well in certain circumstances.
it's quite an incredible building, and they always have amazing shows.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful specimen of brutalist architecture. And
Yeah.
it was back in the days where they did stress concrete, very large spans and all of that sort of stuff. And I kind of get right into it because my parents were both architects. And
Right.
so
Okay.
I can appreciate that aesthetic as well. And so I did this show in Paris, and it was all based around, they've got this huge art space. So I made these gigantic prints, one that's on the wall back behind me, if you can see.
I can see that one. Yeah.
So they're all 2.5 meters by 1.5 meters, and it's kind of, oh yeah, well, here we go. Let's crate them all up. 25 prints, send them to Paris, off we go. Anyway, then after, then COVID hit. And so they were in the embassy for pretty much 2 years because there was lockdowns in Paris. And then they thought, well, it's unfair because, we had the opening there. We did a big bushfire appeal thing because 2019.
2019, yeah.
Horrible bushfires. So that made a lot of money for the bushfire appeal. There was people offering up wine, and, we had tickets to Roland Garros and all of that sort of stuff. And it was a fantastic event. Anyway, the prince stayed there for 2 years, and then they said, well, we might as well do the Australia Now celebrations and have this as part of the show. So I did a group show with a girl called Patrina Hicks.
Okay.
I'm sure you're familiar with.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Beautiful work. And so we did this show together in the embassy there. And then my work went to Madrid, and then it went to Berlin, and it went to Croatia. Now it's in New York. I just did a show with the United Nations just like last week, which was fantastic. So it was an event for climate change, basically. But my work is I'm more about environment and protecting the environment than climate change. But that sort of goes hand in hand. So it was a fantastic show. Had lots of ambassadors there, so it was a little bit nerve-wracking. But so that was a precursor show to another one. I want to do a proper gallery show in New York sometime middle of this year, and then the collection's going to tour the States, which will be
awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the planning of. You said you headed up to Darwin and you weren't sure what you were doing or why you were doing it. The planning of that, how did that sort of come about? What was it that made you want to go there in the first place? And what was it that sort of made you then say, okay, well, I'm going to do some photos in the plane as I fly up?
Yeah, well, the thing was that, to fly to Darwin, just to fly to Darwin, would have been an expensive exercise and have nothing to show for it apart from going to Darwin. I could have just got a Qantas plane and gone there.
It probably would have been cheaper than the fuel cost to fly a Cessna up there.
That's right. But then I put the camera in the plane and I said, I've got a reason to do this now. And then the planning part of it was pretty much, I take off with a very loose plan because at the time I still was a visual pilot, so I couldn't fly through cloud.
Yeah, right.
If I came across bad weather, I'd fly the other way. And so it was a loose plan to go to Darwin, but how I got there was a completely different way than what I'd planned to go, because the first day I came across bad weather. I landed in Broken Hill, and there was bad weather to the east, so I kind of went west, and that was a higgledy-piggledy way to get there. But eventually I got there, and then since then I've become a instrument-rated pilot, so I can fly through anything now, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, the planning is kind of like I get onto, Google Maps and look for unusual formations and shapes. There's lots of them. Sure. Mountain ranges that, like when you look at Australia, it's just incredible what you kind of get,
Absolutely.
Look like they're being cut, like by him. They're not wobbly, they're straight, and they go for many, many miles. When you get to Central Australia, it's mind-boggling what you see, and there's other places, the lakes, all the salt lakes are fantastic. Channel country up in, around Bergsville there, and that whole area, that's a huge artesian basin. When that soaks through, it's mind-blowing because, you can't get people can't go there. So there's just miles and miles of rivers and creeks that you follow, and it's just got this fantastic crazed pattern, and it's gorgeous,
Yeah.
Then, I'm not really into shooting man-made stuff. This is why Australia is so fantastic, because you can fly for 10 hours and not see anything.
That's right. Yeah. You might see a fence or a windmill or an outhouse or something. Yeah.
Well, you see this little house and you go, well, where do they go for coffee? Like it's
the kitchen.
but it's bizarre that people live so remotely in Australia. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you stop at some of these towns and you meet the people there, you meet the locals, and it's kind of, you hear their story about, everyone's got a fantastic story. And this is what excites me about this whole thing as well. You meet lots of people, you talk to them about stuff. I'm open to talking to pretty much anybody. And it's beautiful. You learn just so much about the world and people and what makes the world a kooky place that it is.
What about staying at some of these remote places? Because a Cessna's fuel range, you can get a few miles, but you're not going to fly Melbourne to Brisbane nonstop.
I can just make it to Brisbane, yeah, but it goes for a while. I've often, done some pretty long legs. Obviously, I need to have an alternate, just in case I hit head or bad weather or something like that. Yeah. So it's always a plan B. But I've done Port Hedland to Uluru a couple of times through, the sandy desert there, and pretty big legs like that. I plan my flights most of the time around where I can get fuel. And
obviously.
So there's often places that I go to again and again because they have fuel there. I try to go a different way so that I can explore another part of Australia.
Yeah, right.
If you get on my website now and you look at the map, like I've pretty much covered most of it, so I know where all the bits and pieces are. If there was a jigsaw made out of Australia, I could go, okay, that's that bit. Yeah, I'm sure that goes in the Kimberley, and this bit goes up in Arnhem Land, and so on. So the colours of Australia, are very distinct as to where you are. And there's some beautiful anomalies as well that you find along the way that you didn't know were there. So some nice surprises. So I do a bit of planning on Google often when I get there, because Google Earth is a moment in time. Mm-hmm. And there's floods, there's droughts, there's all sorts of things that go on. And so, you get to a place and it might be really wet or it might be really dry. And so you'll get something different out of it,
You might have sand dunes covered with grasses because the
correct.
rains come and the grass is sprouted.
Right. Or you might have some of these salt lakes that are full of water.
Yeah.
And so I get that whole thing. And then also different places change their personality depending on the light too, so you go there golden hour, morning or late afternoon, and it's just stunning. It has these very beautiful sharp shadows. I find the sea is nicer to shoot during the day, kind of mid-morning when the sun's not too high, but it doesn't refract off the water. So you get into the sea. It's lovely. So you can see the underlying topography of the ocean floor, which is really, really beautiful. But yeah, just, it's fascinating. The things that you see are I look at it all and just, it's a pinch me, I'm dreaming moment. It's crazy. A lot of the time it's like, I just sit there going, I cannot believe how lucky I am to see this.
Yeah.
There's often been times where I take somebody along, like another commercial pilot that's making up their hours or something. I get them to fly. We share the fuel, which is great. And then they get to fly. Whenever there's something I need to shoot, I kind of take over and shoot. And there's been university professors that I've taken along. There's been art collectors that I've taken with me. So it's been really interesting. It's like the voyage has been really cool. The places where I do stay sometimes and I can't get accommodation, because I often don't book anything ahead because I don't know where I'm going to go.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to go, is when you're in somewhere remote and there is no accommodation or there is nowhere else to sleep. Are you sleeping in or under the plane? What are you doing?
Just I go to swag, sleep under the plane, or if it looks kind of weird, I sleep in the plane. I just put the seat back, and it's not quite as comfortable, but it's nicer just sometimes I put a tarp over the wing.
Yeah, right.
And makes it easy, So there's loads of places to land around the place. It's That's not the problem. It's just sometimes finding accommodation. And
Yeah,
then,
when it's an unplanned stop. Yeah.
yeah. And then sometimes, obviously, I kind of wait till like I plan it. So I'm landing close to last light.
Yeah.
So I get that late sun, which is really beautiful to shoot in. And, I often land somewhere pretty late, go to the pub. They sometimes even have, roadkill as a special for dinner, which is kind of interesting. And yeah, it's great. It's a lovely sort of a thing to be able to do. I've never had an unpleasant experience, if you like. It's always been good, touch wood.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. I relish the time. I'm trying to make a time now that I can go, because at the moment I can't go north because of the monsoon. Rains too much.
There's a lot of rain up north right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do was to check out the I've only been there once before, the southwest part of WA, the wheat belt there. It's
Yep.
got a whole lot of really kooky little, shapes in it that I'll spend a week around there shooting all of that sort of stuff, which would be great. There's some lovely places that I land along the way. An airport called Forest, which is this huge airport in the middle of the Nullarbor, it was originally made for the Department of, the Bureau of Meteorology.
Okay. Yep.
So also the early flights, the DC-3s going across Australia, that was somewhere for them to land and get fuel, or land if they had bad weather or something. So there's huge runways in the middle of the Nullarbor, these two big crossing runways at a place called Forest. So I've gone there a couple of times, and it's an outpost that's on the Indian Pacific Railway, but it's very difficult to get there by road. There's a few tracks and stuff, but you access it by either train or.
Right.
And I know the people there quite well. There's usually a couple or whoever become the caretakers of it for a period of time. So I've met a couple of different people there, but the ones that have been there now have been there for a couple of years. And I ring them up and say, look, I'm coming over. Do you need anything? It's usually, then I fill the back seat of the plane with deer and I get over to them.
Nice.
So that's often pretty cool. And it's a lovely place because they give you the people that have stayed there in the past. Google it one of these days. They've got a sculpture park there. They've got this huge hangar that the one couple that were working there turned it into a cinema, getting these 16mm old black and white movies, Humphrey Bogart sort of things. And that was kind of cool. And they give you a house to live in, which is awesome. There's 5-6 houses there, and they look after the people that are doing maintenance on the railway, and they make you a beautiful dinner and sit around and have a bit of a yarn with them. And it's fabulous. So people along the way are very cool. And then Simon Hogan is from the Spinifex Art Project, which is in a place called Chutnjara, which is northwest of Forest, not very far. So I pop in there sometimes to go and say good day to. There's a guy called Riley who's the studio manager there. So that's always fairly interesting, and that's kind of it. It's cool. It's different every single time.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned the connection that you have with the landscape in terms of being able to say, okay, well, if there was a jigsaw, you'd be able to say, yep, that's Kimberley, or that's Western New South Wales, or whatever.
Yep.
How do you think that's influenced the artistic side of your work, the actual selection of what you're looking for when you're planning your shoots? Because I'm interested in how you sort of say, okay, well, I know this place has got this sort of land. There's a lot of salt lakes here, so that's what I want to get into, for example. What is it that sort of drives that thinking around the actual art that you are planning to make from those flights?
Well, what I'll do is I try and find abstract landscape for a start, because I don't want it to look like a drone image, for example. If it's too literal, then it's kind of like, okay, well, somebody could have done it with a drone. So my pictures are sort of blur the line between painting and photography. So I find the landscapes that are usually fairly painterly, and sometimes people have to look twice to see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's occurrences, there's events that I see that are actually happening at the time. Like there's an image called Wind and Water that I shot, which depicts a body of water getting blown by really strong winds over the salt, and so it makes these wild sort of shapes. And it looks like something that's been painted or contrived or something like that, but it's a natural occurrence, and it was happening while I was shooting it. So it will never be the same again. It'll be different. It'll happen
Yeah.
again. It'll be different next time. So that's something I shot. There's a series of lakes called Lake Amadeus between Uluru and Alice Springs that turns into Lake Neal, and it sort of heads north, turns into Lake McKay. It's a very big, long lake system, and it's magical. It's just, like I said, every time I go there, there's something new, and it's so vast that I can fly over it a dozen times and get new stuff the whole time, different heights, and so on. But it's really like I said, I try and find different places to go, but then sometimes I'm forced to go somewhere because that's where the fuel is, and then I'm working out of there. I'll just make a slightly longer track or a detour around it. But if I know that there's something along the way that I could find some gems in, then I'll fly over it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was one time I went to an area called Carnegie Station, which is a very large cattle station in the middle of WA.
Yep.
So it's on the what's it called? What's that road that goes, the Gun Barrel Highway?
The Gun Barrel Highway, yeah.
Yeah, you've heard of that. So
Yep.
there's a lot of people going through there with four-wheel drives and stuff, but trying to fly there was a little bit difficult. So I had fuel sent ahead, landed at this station and stayed there for a couple of days and did big trips out of there out towards Newman, Meekatharra down in the sort of south,
Yep.
back into Warburton the other way. And so I did a big survey of the whole area there, which was really beautiful. And I found these lakes there that had, you often find sand dunes that are, because they're shaped by the wind, they're often straight lines.
Mm-hmm.
This area, they had sand dunes that were like little donuts,
Okay.
So they were dotted around the place, which was quite unique. So it gave it it gave the landscape a look that it was like from another planet. It was absolutely fantastic. And so you had this very dark brown reddish sort of ochre colored soil, and it's usually the geology that gives the color to the area.
Yeah.
Had little round sand dunes all over the place, which was really crazy. It was like, wow. So exploring that was really fascinating. And so I like I said, I try and just find something a little bit different each time. I think it was like last year I went over an area called up in near Mount Isa, and it's called Running Man Rock. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have seen Running Man Rock, yeah.
Really cool. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, the little running man in the rock, So, and it's actually a very small area of, the formation's quite small. So if you don't know where it is, it'll be really hard to find. So I heard about it because Ray Martin went there.
Yeah, I actually saw they did a bit of a doco about their trip out there to
He
find
made it quite famous. And then I was
Yeah.
like, where's this? Because somebody did make me aware of it. And I went out there to have a look for it, and there it is. And it was just absolutely stunning. And then
Yeah.
around that area, there's a whole lot of other beautiful stuff. There's a lot of mountain tracts with water and so on. And it's just going from the desert, and then you see that sort of stuff. And it's a very, very clean demarcation between two different landscapes. And it's beautiful. And then up north of that, you get up into Burketown, into that area. It's stunning. The rivers around there and so on. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. So why abstract? What is it about abstract that has sort of caught your eye? Having done journalistic photography,
Yep.
what is it that makes you say, okay, well, now I want to, I don't know, you might still be doing some portrait work and other stuff.
Oh, now and again,
But I'm just interested in why abstract has sort of come to the fore in your work.
Because I wanted to shoot landscape in a different kind of a way. And with those, inspirations that I've got from First Nations artists and so on, to just have a point of difference with landscape photography. And then, I come across these little accidents that happen. Like I shot, there's an image that I made called Izzy Miyake, which is it's a little nod to the designer Izzy Miyake, because he makes these very wrinkled fashion garments with lots of pleats and things like that in them. And I shot this mountain range in an area called Durack, just near Lake Argyle up in the Kimberley. And So I printed it and looked at the print, and it was the wrong way up. But then when it's a straight down shot, which way up is it?
That's right.
Is it north up or is it whatever? So I was just looking at it, and the river, to me, because of the way the light was when I shot it, the rivers in the valleys of these mountain ranges looked like they were actually on the peaks of the mountain ranges.
Oh, right.
And then I turned the print over, and they were in the valleys of the mountain ranges. So just the optical twist that I got by accident because of having the print the wrong way up.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, geez, that's a really cool little twist of your mind, because people look at it and go, hang on a second, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I love little things like that. And then also things like shooting basically a beach of a salt lake or something like that. And salt lakes often have shades of pink and blue and so on in them. And if you turn it around on its side, the salt lake becomes the sky, and the bank becomes a new horizon. So it's also another little play on landscape that I love to do. There's all sorts of other little things that I found either by accident or purposely. I've sort of cropped something strangely or whatever. But what's interesting also is that nature in the geology and geography it echoes itself in plant life. There's a gigantic like a coral sort of a thing a reef that I shot in the Kimberley one time, and it looks like a leaf from a Monstera deliciosa.
Okay. Yeah.
And often you look at the fractal kind of landscapes of rivers and so on, and they could be something microscopic that you look at in an electron microscope. So there's echoing of natural shapes and formations that you see on a massive scale, and then you see them on a micro scale as well, which is just beautiful how nature works like that.
Definitely.
This kind of, it's like also looking at cycles of the world as well, cycles like daytime, nighttime, 4 seasons, this and that and whatever, and moon cycles and so on. That's what really fascinates me about the world too. So it's, because I've learned an awful lot during my time doing the commercial photography. I've learned a lot about weather, climate, cycles of the world and so on. So it's fascinating. It really satisfies my curiosity,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Are you strictly digital with the cameras you're using, or you film in those overhead shots?
I'm strictly digital. The thing is I've had this discussion with many photographers, and, I've got a lot of guys that I know, young photographers, often young photographers, have got to go through that romance of film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been in the darkroom for 10 years, and it's not a romance for me anymore.
No, they're not the funnest places to be.
I know a lot of that photographer, the amazing Australian photographer, God, what's his name? Bill Henson. I know a lot of his old printers that used to work at La Trobe.
Yeah, right.
And they're dying of cancer. They're dying or have died of cancer from just being, in those chemicals and breathing in all that stuff for many, many years. And it's awful, So the digital thing is fantastic. Having a darkroom in my office, that's actually a computer.
Yep.
It really excites me. I think that's beautiful. The thing is that with the whole thing about the romance of film, I say, okay, go ahead and do it. See how much it's going to cost you, because it's really costly. Not what it used to be. And then come back and you'll realize, you'll go through it, you'll go down the rabbit hole, you'll come back out, and then you'll realize it's all about the image. It's not about the medium. It's about the image. It's about taking the photograph and making something beautiful that excites you, that sort of,
exactly. Well, 9 times out of 10, they're scanning the image that they end up creating anyway.
Correct.
And then editing that digitally, So.
Right, exactly right. So this is it. It's kind of like you just have to let people have their own journey in photography and in whatever they do. And because I mentor, a lot of young guys now and my assistants and so on, and we talk a lot about photography. I know a lot of art photographers, and it's this beautiful discussion that we have. And it's like another evolution of their lives and my life as well, talking to them, So it's
Definitely,
film digital part of it. I entirely shoot digital now. That said, I did find I've got an old 195 land camera
Yep.
that shoots 665 Polaroid full frame, and I've found a bag of old Polaroid film, and I'm just sort of seeing, a lot of it doesn't work anymore, but some of it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm doing a little portrait. I had an idea to do portraits of the people in my street. And so,
Okay.
because I've got a very kooky street here in St Kilda,
Yeah.
and really cool people, and a couple of junkies, couple of prozzies. So I thought that'd make a really interesting sort of a subject, and I can actually give them a Polaroid. So then I thought, what I'll do is shoot this little project with them, and then do a little exhibition at the end of the year in a local gallery, and invite them all along. And so I think that'd be a kind of nice thing to do. I watch a lot of those things. There's a YouTube channel that does things on photographers, and so I watch a lot of those. And I was inspired by this portrait photographer that did people in the street, and so I was like, oh, what a great idea! So there's going to be my film entree for since digital began, and that'll be kind of fun. And I will actually print it in a darkroom. I've got a buddy of mine that's got a darkroom, so I'll probably do that. Because you get these beautiful big negs off the 665 Polaroids. The ones that just you wash them in sodium sulfite and you have this lovely neg.
Yeah.
There's lots of different marks and bits and pieces and damage and patina. You call it patina. There you go. So I think that'll be a lovely project to work on. So that's another one that's hopefully I start doing that in the next few weeks before it gets winter again.
Yeah, fantastic.
You think of these things and you kind of go, oh yeah, that'd be a fantastic idea. And you kind of put it off. And then all of a sudden 2 years have gone by. It's like you haven't done it yet. So
That's it.
I'm going to get stuck into it. So
Yeah.
film doesn't work. I'll have my trusty SLR as well. And I'll just do it on that too. So it'll be fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about exhibiting your work.
Yes.
How did that start for you? And if somebody was looking for advice in how to start putting together an exhibition, because to me, you've got to start planning that sometimes years in advance of actually getting to the point where you're in a gallery.
Yeah.
Was that your experience or was it more organic? How did that happen for you?
The exhibition, I had an exhibition here in Melbourne prior to the one I sent to Europe. And so I had like a bunch of photographs on my computer after I came back from that initial trip, and I'd done a couple of trips since then. And they were just photographs on my computer. And somebody actually said to me, this is actually a pretty cool body of work. Why don't you show it? And so that's pretty much what I did. And so what I wanted to do for my first ever show, it's on YouTube. You should have a little look at it, the setup. I did a one night only show, and I hired a aircraft hangar at Essendon Airport.
Oh, yeah.
And put my plane in the middle of it because my plane, she's part of the whole.
The part of the story, yeah.
Her name's Valerie.
Okay.
And we built a bar around Valerie, and I put my pictures all around the outside. And it was a one night only event, and I just got all over social media. Anyone that wanted to come along could come along. And so it was basically, it was a wonderful little opening to showing. Like, I'd done a couple of solo shows before, but they were always kind of somebody, just a little sort of a thing, nothing as big as this. Yeah. And then that kind of kicked off, sold a couple of images from that. That kind of kicked off having a few other shows, and then going to, I did a show in Canberra, I did a show in Sydney, in Adelaide. The Adelaide show was really successful because a lot of my images are from South Australia, because South Australia, I found, is the most diversely coloured state that there is. There's the coastline is stunning, and then gets up into the desert and so on. It's just really, it's quite diverse, South Australia. So, and they've all been kind of relatively sort of successful in selling a few prints. They've paid for themselves. And so I just kind of kept doing it, and just kicking the can along, pretty much having an exhibition every so often. The problem is now I've shown the pieces that I have at the moment in Melbourne a number of times. And so I'm making a whole new set of prints. So like they all live in a warehouse while they're not being shown. And so what I did was I had an archive sale pretty much. So sold off all the old ones. Some of them have gone overseas, which allowed me to keep the frames, which is really nice, so that I can
Nice.
put new images into them. And then I'll have a new show this year, which will be great. And as I said, the other collections just landed in New York, so I really want to have another show there, which also I'm going to try and freshen up that collection by putting a whole lot of new images into that, changing up
Oh,
some of the frames that I don't like anymore. So that'll be great. And just keep kicking along with these shows because I love exhibiting because, it's sort of it's a very different buzz than what you get out of shooting commercial stuff,
yeah. Yeah.
It's a really lovely thing to be able to do and then have the story that goes behind it as well. I think it's fabulous. So, and people really appreciate it, and often when I sell a print to somebody, I'm try to, wherever I can, do the installation for them and everything else. So it's really rare that you have an artist that actually installs their own work,
Yeah. Mm.
So it's a nice thing to do. And I've got a couple of collectors that have every couple of months they go, "Oh, Andy, we're ready for another one. I want to put one up in my office and this and that." So it's good. It's good.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, what about the selection process? Because obviously you're taking a lot of images and then you've got to sit there and work out, okay, well, when you're putting together a body of work,
Yep.
you've either got to have complete difference between each of them because they've got to be diverse, or there's got to be some thread that runs through them.
You've answered my question.
Well,
Um,
how do you make that choice though? What is it
Well,
that you
I'll
do
tell-
to
I'll tell
start
you.
thinking about that?
It's pretty much, and I'm sure you find this yourself when you're looking through images and there's, when I come back from a shoot, I'll quickly look at it the night after I've shot it and then kind of store it away. I'll archive it. I'll take it off the computer and put it on another drive so that I've got a backup. But then when I get home, I go through all of those images and it's pretty much instantaneous. It's what moves you straight away. Like you go through them all and you go, oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
in. Yeah.
And so that's pretty easy to sort of get around. So you can't kind of flog something out of something that's not working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Right.
usually when it works straight away and it hits straight away. Sometimes I look back while I'm, if I need to get an image print ready for somebody and I, process it high res out of the raw file. Because when I get home and I choose them, I just make little JPEGs to stick on the website. When I do the raws for making the big prints, then sometimes I'll go, while I'm finding those images, then I'll find something else that I haven't seen for a really long time. And that's like, oh shit, this is something new. So I deal with them as soon as I get back. So they're still fresh in my mind. And that's where I weed out all the sort of rubbish and just pick up what's really beautiful. But then sometimes I find little accidents afterwards.
Yeah. Right.
And then there's other things that, that I find after they're actually printed, because when I look at them, I kind of go through them fairly closely on, because I don't retouch them at all. There's nothing that I do to them apart from sometimes I just put a little bit of contrast in there because if it's hazy or smoky or something like that, because often particularly in Northern Territory, there's fires burning all the time.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of haze in the air, and sometimes you have to get up fairly high to shoot something, or sometimes down low. But sometimes what I'll do is I'll shoot, like I'll fly over an area and I'll shoot a series of images and then stitch them together and take a crop out of where I like.
Yeah.
And that allows me also sometimes corporates want a really big long image for something, and so that I have those as well. So it's kind of a nice way to do it. But then often once the print is printed, people find stuff in there, like I'll have an exhibition and a geologist will come along and they'll go, holy shit, man, you've captured something really spectacular here. So I had this guy in Adelaide when I had the show there, and there's an image that I've got called Recumbent Nude, which is a nod to Henry Moore, the artist, the sculptor. Yeah. And so it's a green field that kind of looks like a beautiful, voluptuous woman lying down with all the wrinkles in the right places and everything else. Anyway, it's this beautiful green field, and I didn't notice there's this, like, some white rocks in there, and this geologist was like, hey man, this is unbelievable. You found this reef of limestone and this is a sinkhole. And I'm like, great. He says, like, you have to tell me exactly where this is. And I told him, and I said, because as part of my show, I have those little cards, explaining the pictures. Got a map of Australia with a pinpoint where it actually is. So that's part of the name is longitude, latitude, solitude. So that goes with.
Nice.
And I said, this is exactly where it is. And off he went to see it and he never came back. So what happened through it.
He might have fallen down the sinkhole.
No, and in that same green picture that I didn't see, people have looked at it really close and they go, oh, you can see kangaroos lying in the grass here, and so there's all of these things that you find out after you've printed these things.
Yeah.
There's been a little kind of a formation that I've had in one of my pictures that nobody's been able to explain. So I've asked geologists and all sorts of things. There's like a little kind of a pattern. It looks like it almost looks like a small crater, but it's only like 30 feet across. And it looks like something splashed into the mud, but it's big enough not to be something that's, it's kind of hard to explain. And I'm like, what do you reckon that is? And they look at it and they go, you know what? I've got no idea.
No idea. Wow.
It's a weird one. And there's some tire tracks near it. So it's something that's possibly man-made, but it's too big to be man-made and it's too kind of regular. You know what I mean? It's a funny sort of a thing. I'll send it to you if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely keen to see that one.
But little things like that, it's kind of exciting, and it's part of the journey in doing this. Yes, there you go.
What do you think your practice has taught you about nature?
So what I feel about nature and looking at this stuff and then thinking about it is that part of the name of the thing is all about solitude. And so I've actually come across the irony of solitude is that we're never actually alone because we're surrounded by nature all the time.
Yeah.
The beating heart of nature all the time. So wherever you look, there's nature. But what makes it really special is like you look at, there's even places that I've gone that I go to, again, they've been covered in windmills now, for power, renewable power and stuff. But just having an appreciation for sustainability, I guess, of the environment. Because, I mean, this is like when you think about it, every day we don't think about this, but when you sort of sit there and reflect and see this landscape as it transforms, I sit there and think about it a lot. And this is really our only home. We don't have anywhere else to go. So if we fuck it up,
there isn't a planet B.
Yeah, we're done. We are done. So we've got to make some kind of a effort to at least extend our time here or to look after it somehow so that it can last for future generations. And I mean, even the beauty of the environment. So other people that do what I do in 100 years to come can see the same beautiful things that I'm seeing, and that they don't get run over by mining or some necessity of man that kind of kills these places, Yeah. So I'm really I'm very aware of that, seeing these things there's been a lake that I went to, and it's a beautiful little lake called Lake Disappointment. And funnily enough, that's another irony. And the second time I went there, it was a really beautiful lake because it gave me colors that were almost out of photographic gamut. They were almost unprintable, these weird juxtaposes of colors. And the second time I went there, somebody drove a car right through the whole place, and just made such a mess of it.
Yeah,
it's just like, why? And you're going to fuck up your car because it's a salt lake, and you go and do donuts all through it and everything else. And it's something that I wouldn't shoot. It was probably pretty kind of cool to shoot, but it just disgusted me so much that I didn't really want to shoot it,
Yeah, I get that.
So, there's those sorts of things, but it's a lot of my work, it's with an environmental narrative. Not so much climate, because I find climate change I have my own opinions about climate change, probably shouldn't go there, but because of what I've learned from becoming a commercial photographer, I learned an awful lot about meteorology, why it is, and how it's a gigantic weather machine and how it just keeps churning the weather that we have. And I don't want to politicize my work, so that's why I stay away from climate change. But as far as environment and environmental sustainability goes, that I'm all for it. Yeah.
What do you do when you struggle to find inspiration and you sitting there going, okay, well, what next? Have you hit creative walls in your career yet?
You know what I did when I was a commercial photographer?
Okay.
So when I was shooting advertising and fashion, I'd need to always be doing something new for my book. I'd need to do a test shoot of some kind. And often, like, I would do things and I'd explore projection and I'd explore diffraction of light and I'd explore mixing colors of light together and having different colored shadows and all of that sort of stuff, different kind of film stocks. And so it was that satisfied by my curiosity about those sorts of things. But after a while of doing commercial work for many, many, many years, there was one time I found the cupboard was bare. Like I felt like I had nothing else to give.
Yeah, right.
It was like, holy shit, what am I going to do now? And I was still shooting commercially, but I couldn't invent anything else to do a test of. So it was more like a burnout sort of a thing, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Every day, like commercially shooting every day. So it was pretty busy, and you're kind of excited because you're doing something new every day. You're going to work. It's like, okay, it's new models, new idea, new concept, whatever. But I was kind of going through the motions, giving people, and it was always for somebody else. So it wasn't for me. When I do a test, it's for me. But once I started shooting these landscapes, it's reinvigorated my whole want and life for photography. It's just,
right.
It's made me like a kid again, and yeah. I love it. At 61, I've rediscovered photography, which is fantastic. So it's kind of reignited this fire for me, which has just been fantastic. And this, as I mentioned to you before, that discovery of having, complete creative freedom is just an amazing thing to have, where you go out there and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this today and, and I'll see what becomes of it. So you go with only a plan to go and discover.
Yeah.
Then you come back with gold. It's just
absolutely
beautiful. So that's the most kind of beautiful thing about it. And since I started this thing, I've had no end of inspiration, because I meet people, I hear stories, I see what they do, and that gives me inspiration. I'll shoot portraits of people, while I'm flying in the outback, and shoot portraits of First Nations people and all of that sort of stuff, which really excites me because you learn about what they do. See, the thing was that when I first went away, I didn't know quite how to approach Indigenous people because you don't have them walking down the street in Melbourne the whole time. You know what I mean? So I was kind of afraid of them. So it put me in a very prejudiced position, which was kind of weird. And I didn't like feeling like that. So this was one of the reasons why I went to the Natsir Awards in Darwin, to learn about their culture, to learn about what made them tick.
Yeah.
And then learning about that just blew my mind, because they just have this completely, they work on another orbit to what we do.
Yeah, it's a completely different mindset.
Yeah, absolutely different mindset. And their connection to the world is very, very, very different. The way they see the world and the way they perceive things and the way they interact with it is quite stunning, So learning about that, and then whenever I get an opportunity, I'll sit down with them and just have a bit of a chat and just see where they're at.
Yeah.
This guy, Simon, he actually built a lot of the roads around the area that he lives. And his occupation, when it's put down on paper, is a weapons maker. And so he makes spears and things like that. And he has an axe with him that he never lets go of. It's his little security blanket, I guess. It's his thing, So his axe, nobody can touch it. And he always has it with him. He's fantastic. So I did a lot of images. He's like, nobody knows even how old he is. He looks like he's 150 years old.
Yeah.
He's like a relic, this bloke. So just shooting how much life he's seen and everything else, all his hands with his axe and everything else. It's just lovely. And some of those images are on my behind the scenes sort of things on the website. But just meeting this bloke it just really blew my mind. You know, it really made me see, as I said, the landscape in a very different manner, and made me appreciate a lot more about where I live and the country that I live in, you know, and appreciate their connection with it and so on. So it's been a real eye opener for me. It's been amazing.
Yeah,
And I
fantastic.
anybody to if they feel inclined to actually follow that path and speak to our First Nations people, they're quite incredible.
Definitely. Where do you see photography in society? What's photography's place in society?
I think, you know, I think photography in society is what I find lovely about photography is everyone has a different take on something. You know, no two people will shoot the same landscape. So you can have 100 landscape photographers and they're all relevant. You know,
Yep.
you can have all the portrait photographers in the world and they all have something beautiful to offer. And I
Yeah.
think for society, it's finding all of those people that, you know, I love looking at, I had the privilege of marking the final year folios of RMIT students one time. And even their work was lovely, you know, to look at it and say, okay, well, you're coming from this place. So it's basically, it's a snapshot of their story on Earth.
Mm.
And how they perceive things. You know, I did this campaign many, many years ago for Bendon, believe it or not, of underwear. And the headline was, it's not how the world sees you, it's how you see yourself. And so it's all about that. What you give in photography and what you create is always different, and it's always give something back, you know, to the viewer. And I love looking at photography because of that.
Yeah.
And obviously love creating it because of that too. So for society, I think photography is very important. And even people that aren't trained in looking at it, see all sorts of walks of life excited about seeing photography, seeing my photography, seeing other photography. It's like, it's a very real thing, and it's something that's so necessary. When it comes down to AI and where that's headed, you know, God only knows. But from my point of view, like there's a couple of AI artists that I know that, you know, do AI sort of, they create original images out of AI. But then you go, okay, well, what's lovely about hand tooled photography? And it is just because it's hand tooled and it's real. And this is another thing that I was going to go into earlier. This is why I don't kind of retouch my photographs. I don't add any color. I try to make them as real as they can be. So
Yeah.
shooting raw images, but I take a little snapshot out of the window with the iPhone, which gives you an idea of what color it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's pretty much it. I portray it like that. There are other aerial photographers that color things to death because that's their shtick. That's what they want to do. And it's, you know, I don't critique them for it or anything like that. It's just that's the way they see it. Me, I could never do that because it's misrepresenting nature and it goes against the way I see it.
Yeah.
But this is what makes the world a beautiful and kooky place. You know, it gives
Definitely.
the
Yeah.
world has such texture because everyone's doing something different and there's something in it for everybody, you know.
That's it.
We're so lucky to have that, you know, and
Absolutely.
the world is a playground, really. It's really, and if you look at it like that, you can, you know, you approach every day and you smile and you go, let's see what happens today, you know. And often, you know, I look at it all. There's people I see that are a lot less fortunate than I am. And so I've absolutely never could have anything to complain about. That's kind of it. That's the way I kind of live it, you know, and photography for me is it's a very important part of it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Who else should I be talking to on the podcast?
All right. There's
What other photographers?
the young man called Liam Lynch.
Okay.
In the same studio as I did. I don't know if you're aware of his work.
I haven't come across him before, no.
He does underwater stuff, mainly underwater stuff, and he's also a nature photographer. He goes into Borneo and shoots orangutans and African animals and weird things like that, but he's really into doing underwater work. His process is really interesting because he creates his own emulsions. He does palladium prints of his things. He shoots with a very kind of interesting kind of a way. Like he did a series on the those. Have you heard of leafy dragons?
Yep.
They're an underwater creature that look like, I think they're related to a seahorse.
Seahorse, yeah.
Anyway, so there's a whole stack of them under Portsea Pier. So he actually set up a little studio backdrop, a little tabletop thing, and he'd coax these guys to swim across, and he'd have the camera ready and shoot them as they passed by this thing. You know, so he's got these lovely portraits of these very, very timid creatures, which was really beautiful. And he's done sharks, and he's done whales and jellyfish and things like that. He's a really remarkable bloke.
No.
And nice guy to boot. You know, he's a top bloke. So he'd be fantastic for you to speak to, because I'll give you his details.
Yeah, please do.
I'll send you his stuff. Another one, Joe Vittorio. He does street photography. He's a commercial photographer, still working as a commercial photographer. He does, he's a musician, used to play in lots of bands. Now he's exploring, he goes and explores Pink Floyd with a more of an orchestral vibe, and he's got this violin player that he's working with. And so you'll get a couple of different directions out of Joe. He's absolutely fantastic. There's a guy called Rod Stewart, who is he's a older photographer. He's a guy that I wasn't assisting, but I knew people that were, and we worked, we sort of had a parallel kind of growing up together as well. He's now a lecturer at RMIT.
Okay.
Very interesting chap. Knows a lot about stuff. There's a girl called Bronwyn Kidd who does some really beautiful work in the art of dance and movement. So she does some beautiful work now. She was a commercial photographer, has turned into an artist now as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can give you all of their details, and you can contact them and tell them that I sent you if you like. And then they'll ring me and say, "Why'd you do that?" Because I think you've got something to say and you've got something to give, you know. And so I think what you're doing is fabulous, you know, that you kind of, it's going to be as inspiring as those shows that I see on YouTube about the photographers. I look at their work and I go, "Oh, this is really great. I'm going to do this because I saw that." You know,
yeah.
It's really lovely to have that, and you know, hats off to you for doing what you're doing. I think it's brilliant.
Thank you very much. I'm very much enjoying it, and I can't see myself stopping for some time. There's a bloody long list of people to talk to, and it's going to take me a while.
Yep. Have you spoken to Bill Henson?
No, not yet. I haven't reached out to him yet either, but he is on the list. Yeah.
He'd be really interesting to speak to.
Yeah, definitely.
Once I was back in my commercial days, I was working for Art Collector magazine, and I did a portrait of what's her name? His partner, someone Lehman. Anyway, so she's very, very interesting painter and does beautiful work. But I love his work. I think it's quite amazing.
Yeah,
and
Bill's work is amazing.
Yeah. That time that Kevin Rudd, remember all that stuff that went down with Kevin Rudd and Bill? He actually put him on the map. He couldn't have bought advertising like that.
That's right.
But it made me look at Kevin Rudd in a very different way, which was, you know, I thought the guy was up in the arts and he was a progressive prime minister and everything else. Turned out he wasn't. But anyway, there you go. Yeah. But I think what he did for Bill was fantastic, you know. So, he really put him on the map. He made him a household name, which was fabulous.
Definitely.
Yeah, so there you go. Any more?
Yeah, I've only got one more question for you, and some people it's a very divisive issue. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
No, pineapple on pizza. I've got an Italian wife, and so we occasionally, and everything else, pineapple on pizza, that I get good on them. You know, that's fantastic. It'd be really simple. No more than 3 ingredients on any given pizza, but pineapple should be one of them. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, Andrew. It's been wonderful getting to know you a little bit better. Where can people find your work?
Yes, and they can look up my name, Google my name, or Cessna Cam, as in the plane, CSSNA Cam. In my work there, they can see you can follow what that's usually in there on my website and on my Instagram. Whoever wants to come and see one of my shows, I'd love them to see it. That'd be beautiful.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantSwinburnphotography.com, along with prints and photography gear. I'm also on Vero, Photo, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because it really helps to get the podcast seen. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.